Look how far we've arrived. We are at War and Peace, Leo Tolstoy, Volume 4. This is the last volume. We are almost there. Before I move forward with this, if you have been watching these videos that I've been making of War and Peace and you've been enjoying it, please let me know. Say something in the comments, leave me a like, tell me something that has been helpful for you in these videos. I would love to hear from you. If you don't have anything in particular you want to say, leave a comment and tell me who is your favorite character in War and Peace. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. Wait till the end of this video and I will tell you who my favorite character is. But if you've been watching my videos so far, I think it's kind of obvious. Before we get into this video, just like all the other ones, this review summary is going to be full of spoilers. So if you don't want to know the details of what happens in this volume 4, maybe this is not the video for you, or you should watch it later. Part 1, it's a short part, but it is just full of really important events within the fictional story. Lots of death and lots of spiritual awakening. Let's begin with the beginning. I don't need to go into detail, but Miss Helena, she dies. And let me just tell you, I did not shed one tear. If anything, it's possible that I started smiling. I'm not gonna even lie, I'm just not about Helena. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone was kind of thinking it, that she probably died because she was kind of a horrible person, because I never mentioned it because there was too much stuff going on with the burning of Moscow and the War of Borodino. But it was briefly mentioned in volume 3 that Helena decided to marry another man, even though she was still married with Pierre. And actually, she wanted to marry 2 men. There was these 2 men and she couldn't decide which one to marry. And she sends a message, a letter to Pierre, and she's like, hey honey, so I'm gonna marry somebody else. Can you divorce me? Thank you. Your friend, Helena. Like, oh my God. So she dies and ain't nobody upset. We don't even have to waste more words on her. Let's move on. Pierre has been arrested and he's under interrogation. They're asking him questions because he was found near a big burning area of Moscow, and they want to know, why was he there? Was he one of these people that were lighting the city on fire? He understood that in this interrogation, he was not being interrogated for his own liberty and justice. He was just being interrogated in order to get them the information they needed. So when they asked, who are you? He wouldn't tell them who he was. Whenever they asked him all these questions, he saw that they were just trying to push the narrative in a direction. And so he kind of just like shut off. They ended up putting him with all of these other prisoners. And one day comes where out of nowhere, without them telling them, they just marched them along to this pole where they dug a hole. They started to execute them 2 at a time. And Pierre was number 6 in the line. He didn't really want to watch. He kept closing his eyes throughout it until the last man, which was it was the 3rd execution. So it was supposed to be number 5 and 6, which he was number 6. They only took the guy who was number 5. He watched this guy get executed and them throw him into a pit. This might be a little bit TMI, too much information. One of the last man that they shot, that they executed, it's the way that Tolstoy wrote it wasn't even sure if he was dead, but they already buried him. Really disturbing scene. There was this quote that I will share with y'all. From the moment when Pierre saw this horrible murder performed by people who did not want to do it, it was as if the spring that upheld everything and made it seem alive had been pulled from his soul, and it had all collapsed into a heap of meaningless trash. Though he did not account for it to himself, His faith in the world's good order, in humanity's and his own soul, and in God was destroyed. Pierre had experienced this state before, but never with such force as now. Before, when doubts of this sort had come over Pierre, those doubts had had their source in his own guilt, and deep in his soul, Pierre had felt then that salvation from that despair and those doubts lay in himself. But now he felt that it was not his guilt that caused the world to collapse in front of his eyes and leave only meaningless ruins. He felt that to return to faith in life was not in his power. I love me some Russian literature for these kinds of things. They are just so deep and they just take you there. They take you all the way down to the lowest of the lowest, and they bring you there and they let you feel it. And damn. They were not planning on executing him. They actually wanted him and everyone behind him to see the executions. I guess to scare them. Maybe it was some kind of weird prisoner of war tactic. I don't know. That's where we end with Pierre at this part. And then we should move over now to Maria, Nikolai, and Sonia. It's brief, but there becomes this relationship building between Nikolai and Maria. Nikolai, he sees Princess Maria again. He doesn't see her as he sees Sonia. He doesn't see her as he sees these other females, which he was flirting with earlier in this part. He sees this beauty in her from her faith and her devotion to God. This respect that he has, he doesn't show respect for women when it comes to these girls that he flirts with. And maybe, yeah, he has respect for Sonia, but it doesn't go to this level that he has for Maria. And he realizes that he wants to start praying and he wants to become more into God, and he needs to figure out something. And him being with Sonia is very selfish, and he's sitting there like starting to be like, okay, I need to actually pray to God to like figure out, get me to like let go of Sonia. But he also realizes that it's not going to happen. Like if you pray for like a glass of water to appear before you, it's not going to happen, right? Praying is more spiritual than something physically actually happening to you. But lo and behold, at that same moment, he gets a letter from Sonia and his mother. And Sonia's like, look, I don't want to ruin your family. And I understand that now that Moscow got burnt and all of their things were destroyed, your parents have nothing. And I don't want to be a cause of more distress. So please, I heard that Princess Maria was a possibility for you. I think you should go for that and just forget about me. And we're done. So it seems that his path has been cleared in order to get to Maria. And Princess Maria is very interested in him too. I mean, she's just blooming in front of him. Like her voice changes around him. She's more feminine. She just looks even more beautiful when she's with him. And so something is culminating here, and it seems to be working out in everyone's favor for both the Rostov family financially and for Maria and Nikolai's happiness. Although Sonia wrote that letter, we do find out later that she only wrote it because Nikolai's mother pretty much forced her to write it and forced her to let go of Nikolai. She has other plans, and she sees that, I'll tell you about it later, but she sees that Prince Andrei is getting better, and she knows that if Natasha and Prince Andrei get married, it will be impossible for Nikolai and Maria to get married because of the arrangements. And so she's kind of like, I'm going to just say this so that I look like a martyr and so I look good, but I know that's not going to happen. And in the end, it's just going to bring Nikolai even closer to me because he's going to realize how devoted I am to his family, which is something I was not expecting from Sonia. I was really not expecting, could think that cunningly. And it's pretty sad, actually, I've lost some respect for Sonia. This leads us to Prince Andrei. And Prince Andrei is dying. Nikolai informs Princess Maria of this, and they travel together to the Rostovs, where the Rostovs are staying, and where Prince Andrei is. Maria brings Prince Andrei's son, who is now, I think, like 7 years old, which is crazy because when we begun this book, he was still in the belly of his mother's womb. Wow, like that shows you how many years has passed. Although the doctors are saying that Prince Andrei might be getting better and, everything is starting to heal, Natasha and Princess Maria, once she sees him, like they know that no, it's done, because in the way that he's acting, it's as if although his body is healing, mentally he's really not even there anymore. He's not. He's in another place. When he sees his son and he sees Princess Maria and he sees Natasha, it's kind of like very hazy, and it's as if he's seeing them through like a window or something. He is not really there. And it's a beautiful way that Tolstoy that he writes the death of Prince Andrei. You really start to see Prince Andrei fluctuating between the living and whatever comes after that. He sees all of them suffering because Prince Andrei is dying and is about to die, but he's kind of above it, and he wants to comfort them, but a part of him knows that no matter what he says, they'll never be able to understand because they're not dying and they're not on their way out. But he, I guess, somehow is able to understand now that all of these trifles and experiences in the living world is nothing, and there's more to it after. Prince Andrei is one of our main characters. He's a big character, and I think him dying is really a big deal within the whole narrative of War and Peace. It's really sad that he's dying. However, it's done in like a non-tragic way. It's really not a tragedy. It's more of a redemptive event. Everyone just seems to be redeeming themselves. Him and Natasha figure out their relationship, and he's able to get over everything that happened between Natasha and Anatoly and forgive them. He sees his sister again and his son, and he blesses his son, and he's able to close his story in life in a really peaceful, spiritually liberated way. Although it's sad to see Prince Andrei die, I think he died in a great way, and I think we could all only hope that we can die in the same manner that Prince Andrei died. So yeah, it looks like we're coming to a close in this book. I mean, I have maybe like less than 300 pages to go. So let's see what part 2 of volume 4 is. Oh, by the way, volume 4 has 4 parts, but all of these parts are very small. So I'll get back to you with part 2. Okay, I just read part 2 of volume 4. This is taking place mainly in Moscow and nearby, and it's the aftermath of the seizing of Moscow. We're really kind of focused a lot on the French army, even some of the military officers of the Russian army as well. Tolstoy, there's a lot of parts in here where he's really just like beating down on us the same thing that he has always been, about how it's not always about one man, it's about the whole, and it's not just about Napoleon or about these certain events and how they went. It was gonna happen this way, and so I'm not gonna, because we already know, but just so you know, he's still going on about the same things. And I love these facts and they're great, but like, there's a lot of fate versus free will here. He's talking about historians and how, depending on who's writing it, especially the stories behind Napoleon and all of his campaigns within Russia, Egypt, Austria, wherever, most of these events are written by French, and they make it kind of seem as if like it was the free will of, and it was the choice of Napoleon that things turned out the way they did. But Tolstoy is trying to show us that a lot of this is fate, and a lot of it is not actually how Napoleon, he wasn't really in like command of all of these people as much as he thought he was. He makes this really great depiction of Napoleon as like this little kid who's sitting on a chariot with the reins, and he thinks that he's guiding it, right? But he's not actually. It's the horses, and they're able to understand themselves, and or if you're on a ship, right? And maybe in the past they would think, oh, like the little statue that you have at the front of the ship is the one that's guiding you, but in reality, no, it's the whole crew. And you see this within Moscow with Napoleon, because he's trying to get everything in order. After a while, he's like, okay, look, we're gonna put everything here in order. And he's talking to the citizens and the people who are living in Moscow, saying, the army, they are not going to raid you. They're not going to steal your stuff, because I'm not going to allow them to. No more burning down of things. We're going to have everything in order because we are gentlemen. It doesn't work out. His army's not listening to him. When they're in Moscow, they're still looting. They're still burning and ruining things and pillaging. So he's sitting here and acting as if he has everything under control, but he doesn't. His army is doing whatever they want. They're pretty wild and untamed during this period of them in Moscow. There is a Russian general, Kutuzov, and he is he's like one of the main generals. He's the one who's calling the shots here. And he's really kind of like taking this idea of like, look, let's just wait this out. I think we should wait. We should see. Let's give it a second. He understands. No one else seems to understand, but he does. And I think it's because he's been in war and military for like over 40 years, that the French army is wounded, and he believes that they have been mortally wounded after the Battle of Borodino. Although everything seems great, they took Moscow, and they're there, and they're sitting there, and it's been like 5 weeks that they're there. Kutuzov is under the impression that they're not doing good, and they're on the verge of collapse. So he wants to wait it out. There ends up being this battle. It's this battle of Tarutino, and it does not go good for the French. And the Napoleon and his army realize that the Russians have really been able to revigorate, get more energized. They got more troops in, and they're a lot stronger than they were before. After this battle, Napoleon decides, and he orders the departure of the entire army. They leave Moscow, and they're going back to France. This is a difficult time, because for the French army, when they were coming this way, right, they had a vision, and they had an end, and it was to get to Moscow. They were able to push and push and push because they had all of this energy to get there. Now they made it to Moscow. They are thousands of miles away from France, and that is their goal now, is to get back. But they're so far away, and winter is coming, and they're already wounded, and all of this, it's really difficult for them to even imagine that they can make it back to France. Napoleon tries to get his troops, keep them motivated. So he's like, look, let's just get to Smolensk. Let's get to Smolensk, that city in Russia that they had, one of those first ones that's near the border. We're gonna get there. We're gonna have more troops, and we're gonna have more supplies, and it's gonna be better. And so he tries to keep pushing them by giving them like this little goal, which is like little. It's really not that little. It's still very far, and you're still in Russia. And he lied to them, because there really are not that much advancements. There's not much more food and sources and soldiers waiting for them there. The Russian army, when they realize that they are leaving and they are escaping, they want to attack. Kutuzov doesn't want to attack. He understands that they're just going to die off on their own. The way that Tolstoy writes it is beautiful. He says that they're kind of like a snowball, right? If you have a snowball and you put it in a warm place, it's going to melt. But you have to wait, because even though it is already like inevitable that this snowball is going to melt because it's been too long in a warm place, it's something that takes time. And so you might not realize immediately that a snowball has melted until that point of disintegration happens. He's seeing the French army in this way, that they are this snowball that has already melted. And although they look still entire, they aren't. And they're going to decompose, and they're going to end up dying themselves, and they don't need to do anything. He is saying, and his idea is, let's just leave them there to their own demise, because they're gonna die on their own. They're just on their way out. They're just gonna die. There's no point of us wasting our men and our supplies and energy when it's just gonna happen naturally. Unfortunately, nobody's on the same page as him, and actually some of the other generals go against Kutuzov's idea, and they still attack the French army anyways. This whole part, we're mainly in like the actual non-fiction world of what actually really happened of history. However, we do go a little bit back into the fictional characters with Pierre. There is this huge change in him. I feel so happy for Pierre at this moment. It's like he's in the worst position ever. He's sleeping in a stable with all of these other prisoners of war soldiers. He hasn't showered or shaved in weeks. His head is full of lice. He's lost a lot of weight because he's not eating properly. And although he looks physically bad and he's in a really weird situation, he has found this inner peace that he has been looking for in this whole book, right? This entire book, he's been looking for it through marriage, the Freemasonry, trying to free his serfs, drinking, eating a lot, reading a lot. He's tried to find his path and what is the reason of life and how to live your life in a way that is fulfilling. And he's never been able to truly find it. And he's found it now while he's a prisoner of war, sitting there as he is. He sees that it's the simplicity of the little things. Now, when he gets to eat, it is a pleasure for him. Not in that artificial pleasure of, oh, let's eat really fancy food, these little things. He took it for granted that he always had these things. He sees that now those are the things that give you happiness, these little tiny things, which reminds me of back earlier in the book when Prince Andrei was trying to tell Pierre, look, that your serfs are happier than you are. You trying to educate them and free them is not going to make them happy, because are we all happy here? All of us educated people who are free and have all of these choices. Look at them. They're the ones who are living a life of true happiness. And now I just feel like it's all coming together. Anyways, that is part 2. I'll get with you with part 3 shortly. I am on page 1075, and I just finished part 3 of volume 4. This part, it's the reverse campaign from Moscow. It's pretty harrowing, the numbers here. Most of this is Tolstoy talking with us, and he's saying that when the French army had left Moscow, they were like 73,000. And on the 28th of October, so they were, from the 28th of October, they arrived to Vyazma, and they are now roughly 36,000 left. This is about 235 kilometers away from Moscow. And I mean, do the math there. They were 73,000, now they're 36,000. There's mathematical certainty that they're they might not make it out of Russia alive. And out of this 36,000 that are left, of those that died, only 5,000 were lost in battle. The rest are being lost from freezing to death, starvation, sickness. Horrible way to die. There's also in this part a lot of partisan warfare. Another term now that we use is guerrilla warfare. So this is when you have small groups employing tactics like ambush, sabotage, and raids to disrupt and undermine enemy operations. We have in this partisan warfare our characters Denisov, Dolokhov, and little Petya, who is not a character we talked about a lot, but Petya is a Rostov. He's like the youngest Rostov child. They are doing some of this guerrilla warfare stuff. They're going in and they're slowly trying to grab some French to have as prisoners of war. They're going into their campsites and trying to get information out of them, acting like they're French and trying to figure out what is their plan. Unfortunately, during all of this that happens, Petya, he dies. He gets shot and fatally shot in the head. He honestly was like too excited about getting involved and getting inside the action, and he made a really bad decision of going straight into where this gunfire was, just so he can get into the battle of things. But he wasn't really thinking, and he died. During this shooting that in which Petya dies, actually these other Denisov and Dolokhov and this partisan warfare, they're able to actually save a lot of the prisoners of wars, the Russian prisoner of wars, and one of them is Pierre and his friends, or his not friends, but his group of prisoner of wars. Tolstoy is critiquing not only the French historians but also the Russian historians. He's saying that all of this history that we're getting, they are subjective and pushing their agenda depending if they're French or if they're Russian. And also a lot of the information that we have about this retreat, this reverse campaign from Moscow, is our information from the generals. And Tolstoy notes that the generals writing these ideas and their strategies is one thing, and another thing is how things actually turn out and the reasons for it. I think this is a reason why Tolstoy really went into detail about these partisan warfare men, because a lot of these things that are happening are not strategies from the higher up officials on both sides. And at this point, Tolstoy is really just pushing in the knife and saying that Napoleon is really not as great as everyone thinks he is. Look, that at this moment, he escapes and he leaves on his sleigh, all nice and warm, while his entire army is freezing. It's not looking good for the French. Again, Tolstoy is just keep going. He's going around the same thing that he has been saying, and I don't want to be like him and keep repeating it, so I'm not going to. You already know if you've been watching my videos. I just finished War and Peace. I just finished War and Peace. I haven't read the epilogues yet, so I'm going to read them tomorrow. But I have finished it. 1,125 pages of War and Peace. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's get talking about Volume 4, Part 4. This is the last part. This is the last volume. This is it, y'all. Oh my God. Before I get into this, I just want to say how how many times I tried to read this. If you watch my first video where I talk about me preparing to read this, I talked about how I tried to read it 3 times and I was never able to do it. And I had this opportunity where my husband and my son are on vacation right now, and I had a lot of time for myself. And I just felt like if it wasn't going to be now, it was going to be never. And I feel so accomplished as a reader that I've gotten to this point. I really, really hope that all of you who are watching have also felt so accomplished if you've gotten to this point. If you have not yet, you can do it. Just it's a long journey, but it's a worth it journey, I believe. Part 4, I love this part. It was just an ending. It was Tolstoy taking the ribbons and making a little bow at the end. He was closing up the story, and it was very nice. We got away from the military and the actual battles, and we brought our way back to the characters. I will say that there was a little bit of military, and I'll get to that first. The Russian infantry, when they were following the French out of Russia, it was very cold. In Russia, I mean, it was already just November and it was already below 0 Celsius. I'm pretty sure that they're talking in Celsius here. They don't say if they're talking in Celsius or Fahrenheit, but considering that the area, I would assume that they are talking in Celsius. They get to December and you have these soldiers who are walking around in negative 16 degrees and not prepared. The French are not prepared for this. They are all dying slowly and horribly. They have frostbite all over them. They have nothing to eat. They're starving. They're eating raw flesh, and they're killing their horses and eating the flesh of the horses. It's not good. For the Russians too, they're also dying. Just because they're from that area doesn't mean that they could handle this kind of cold. But what they have, though, is that they have all of Russia behind them, in which they can leave all of their wounded. They can have new infantry coming in. They can have equipment and jackets and things coming. And so that is something that is also a positive for the Russian infantry, is that they have all of this that can just keep coming up to them and helping them. And obviously, it is their land, so they do know the land, and they have dealt with that kind of cold. Whereas you have the French, who don't have any reinforcements, and they're not used to the cold. Not only are they not used to this kind of cold, they're not ready, they're not equipped for it. They came to Moscow in the spring, like the late spring and summer, right? And so they were not ready for this kind of weather. That's pretty much where we end it with the military. I mean, well, he kind of wraps it up a bit. We even go a little bit farther than that. After they leave the Russian borders, then Tolstoy kind of zooms out and is like, okay, well, now we're outside of Russian borders. General Kutuzov was really more involved with Russian security. Now that they have left, Kutuzov has been replaced with actually the Emperor Alexander. And now the Emperor Alexander is thinking not anymore about just Russia. He's now thinking about Europe as a whole and the fight against Napoleon. So I'm pretty sure that the epilogues will go into that, but I already know a little bit about what happens there. And so that's where we end it, at least with the story when it comes to that. And then we come back to Moscow. We go into Natasha and Princess Maria. They really get close. Prince Andrei, after the Battle of Borodino, he didn't die. He kept surviving for 1 month. And Princess Maria and Natasha were the ones that were taking care of him. They got really close after he died because they shared this hardship together and this loss. They became very, very, very close friends. And when Princess Maria had to go back to Moscow, Natasha decided to go with her. They said that she was going in order to have care, for medical care, but it was also, I believe, because her and Maria became very good friends. We get to Moscow and there's just this immediate rebirth. From like the moment that the French leave, people start coming back to Moscow. In the beginning, it's kind of a mess. Like even some of the Russians are looting Moscow, but things start to get back in order, and within a year they get back to the same population number, maybe even more than before all of this. So Moscow immediately just comes back alive, and they get into the mode of rebuilding. I'm gonna get back to Natasha and Maria, but just a little bit about Pierre. After he comes back to Russia and he's no longer a prisoner of war, he goes through like, I think, a couple of months of just sickness. Like it's like everything just like hits him afterwards, and he has to recover a lot and sleep a lot. After all of this, he's really changed. Everyone has noticed he's very different now. Like the way he's acting, he's more like direct now. Like before, he cared a lot about what people thought and saying the right thing, and he kind of just lost it. Like he's like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to say what I think is right, and I'm going to just be myself, and I'm not going to, it seems to me that he doesn't really have as many filters as before. But not just that, he also just seems to care more about people. He really wants to know more about everyone else's story. He no longer wanted to talk about himself like he used to, or his ideas and his thoughts on life, and trying to persuade people in certain directions. He no longer did that. He now realized that you need to respect other people's opinions, and that people can have different ideas and opinions on life. And that's normal because we all live different lives and we see life differently. And the best thing we can do for one another is to respect one another in our differences. So he kind of stops like trying to figure out how things work, and instead he kind of just is just letting himself float on and experience life, and now he's interested to see how other people see life, and he wants to know, like, well, tell me your story, I want to know. And it's beautiful. However, there's something that's still kind of like missing in him, right? And he ends up going to go see Princess Maria because he wants to find out about how Prince Andrei died and everything, and he wants to be there with her. He does not know that Natasha's there. He ends up going there and running into Natasha, not even recognizing her, because she is so depressed and has lost so much weight and is so sad that she's aged, and so she doesn't even look herself anymore. But as soon as Natasha sees Pierre and they start being with each other for the next couple of days, she completely just brightens up and lightens up, and she becomes more happy and alive again. And also Pierre too. There was like this part of him that was missing, and it came back to him as soon as him and Natasha came back together and were reunited. Princess Maria notices this. She's a little bit sad because they're in mourning for Prince Andrei, for her brother. However, she can see how much it's needed for both Pierre and Natasha to have something to give them happiness. And so we end this part with Pierre and Natasha both. They have not yet said it out loud to one another, but they are both preparing themselves separately to eventually get married to one another. It's as if they didn't really need to even say it to one another. It was just so obvious in their feelings towards one another and being with one another. I'm happy how it ended because it seems that Pierre and Natasha are probably going to get married. Maria and Nikolai are probably going to get married, and all these people died, and Moscow has burnt down. However, kind of reminds me of like a, the what is it, the phoenix that they say that comes out from the ashes, and it's beautiful in that way. It's beautiful to see all of the Moscovites coming and just rebuilding and seeing all of this love that's coming out, and even through all of this hardness and everything and ash, there's still growth coming through. It's beautiful. I'm so happy that I read this book. Obviously, I have to do the epilogues. I'm going to just be honest that in 2 days from now, I'm going on a big trip. I'm going to Bulgaria, and I don't know if I'll be able to finish this before then. And then by the time I get back to Bulgaria, my husband and my son will be back, and so I don't even know if I'll have time. But I will read the epilogues, the 2 epilogues, and I just have to say, this is such a great book. I don't want to give my review yet and my opinion until I've had some time to ponder and think and just let it marinate. So maybe when I get back from Bulgaria, I will talk with you guys more about my thoughts on this. But at this moment, this check off of my list of like, this is something I feel on my bucket list of, not even just of my reading life, but as my life in general. This is just one of those books that I always wanted to get to, and I always felt like, oh, you need to read this book. I'm so glad that I read it. Oh, I told you guys I would tell you who my favorite character is. My favorite character, I have a lot, there's so many characters here that I love. I love to see in general all of their development. Every single character here, not every single character, but at least if you go through the character list, right, which is like 2 pages long, all of those characters, you see them develop and change and get older and go through life, and it's so interesting to see them. Some of them have really blossomed, and like Natasha, for example. As much as I feel for Princess Maria, she's just such a strong character, right? And then there's some characters where it didn't really pan out that great, right? For example, Helena and Sonia. For me, those are kind of characters that I kind of didn't really go towards. Prince Andrei, I have to say that every single thing that he ever said to me was gold. I almost highlighted everything that he said when he was thinking philosophically. He has such this great way of seeing the world and thinking about things. Even when he's depressed and even when he doesn't really understand things, I love the way that his brain works. So deep of a character. But of all of the characters, if I had to pick one that I was just like, this is my favorite character, it would have to be Pierre. Oh yeah, it's Pierre. I just feel for him. Like, you see him and how he's such an outcast, and he just always sticks out like a sore thumb, and he's trying, but he doesn't know, and he's what to do, and he's trying all these different paths, right? And then during the war, when he's just kind of ends up on, he just decides, like, I just need to go to the battlefield. I need to be here. It's like he knows he needs to be there, but he doesn't know what to do. And then when he's there during the burning of Moscow, and he becomes a prisoner of war, and it's the same thing. It's just, I love his character, and I feel very much, I don't even just see like myself within him, which I do, but I just feel like a lot of us probably feel like Pierre, where we're going around like, I know that there's something more and I need to figure it out, but I just can't figure it out, right? And I really love Pierre as a character. Whereas everyone else, I felt like kind of like understood which kind of direction they wanted to go, or they had some kind of idea at least. Pierre had no idea, and I love to watch him grow as a person and as a character, and I really love that in the end, it seems that things are going to work out nice for him. Anyways, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed these videos. Hopefully I'll be able to make another video with the epilogue and my final thoughts, but don't rely on that for me. I am not sure. It depends if I have time or not. But yes, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, it was a pleasure, guys.